So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you an overview of Canvas today, and then we're also going to take some time to look more specifically at the most used features. If you have any questions at any point in time, feel free to go ahead and type them into the chat, and I'll be happy to stop and answer those questions for you. So just a couple things before we take a look at Canvas itself. So Canvas will work with most browsers, but Chrome is the one that is recommended, and that's the one that actually we use here, and also the one that the people at Canvas use. So the latest two versions of Chrome are supported, 79 and 80, and you can use Firefox, Edge. The one that does not work is Internet Explorer, so we don't recommend using that, and in fact, if you do try to use it, it may not even load. The other thing I like to mention here is that you do have an option to download an app if you like to try to keep up with your class on a mobile device, and you can find the teacher app on whatever app store you use, and students can find an app. They have their own app as well, so if you want to mention that to your students. All right, so we're going to go ahead and take a look at Canvas here, and when you look at your dashboard on Canvas, you're going to see a couple of things that I just added for you in addition to your course shell that you have for the course that you're teaching. So if you look here, you will see the Growing with Canvas teacher training course. You may have to accept the invitation to join it. It'll be up at the top of your dashboard. This is a course that was created by the people at Canvas to teach instructors how to use the learning management system. And it's not a mandatory course or anything, but it does have a lot of good resources. So there are tutorials and videos and things that you can use as a resource to help you learn how to use Canvas. The other thing that you will see is a sandbox that I've created for you. A sandbox is basically a place that you can kind of experiment and play around and get to become comfortable with Canvas without worrying that you're going to mess up your actual course shell that you have students in. And then the last thing, and I believe that you already had accepted the invitation to join the Canvas Faculty Hub, but the Faculty Hub is basically the place where you are going to see any items that are newsworthy that we've found that we need to share with faculty. So any types of updates that Canvas is doing, they like to change their system periodically, not completely, but they are always working on tweaking features and making improvements. And so anytime there is something coming up that we think is going to be necessary to inform instructors about, you'll find that here in the Canvas Release Notes button. We also have our workshops and webinars listed here, so any upcoming training opportunities that we're offering. You are right now completing your basic Canvas mandatory training, so that's what's up at the very top, so you don't have to worry about that. But down here is where we'll give information about any other types of workshops that we're offering. And we also have here our open lab hours schedule, which you'll also get emailed at the end of this webinar. But this is basically our time where we are available to our instructors if you need help to come in. And we'll talk about that a little bit more toward the end of the webinar. And then the main thing that we have here, if you click on the modules in the Faculty Hub, is you've got lots of videos and tutorials that we've created that will help you learn how to use Canvas. So a lot of this stuff we will be covering today, but not all of it. There are certain things that aren't used by everyone that I don't spend time on today. For example, peer reviews and groups. Those kinds of things are definitely great tools, but they're not things that I'm going to spend a lot of time on because of our limited time that I have. And so you can always come here to the modules in the Faculty Hub to look over the different videos and resources that we have for you. So I am going to start over here. On the left-hand side, we call this our global navigation bar. This basically is going to be on the left-hand side of your screen no matter where you are in Canvas. So you can always get back to your dashboard or wherever else you need to go in Canvas from here. So I'm going to start over here under where it says Camden County College, and I'm going to click here. So the first thing I do want to point out is that you can, if you have not already, you can upload a profile picture of yourself. It's nice for students to get to know you a little bit even before classes start, or if you're teaching an online course, to get to put a face with a name of the person that they're going to be interacting with all semester. And you also can, from here, upload a brief bio, maybe a little bit of information about yourself, your experience, whatever you want to provide to students. But the first thing I'm going to click on here is the notifications. And this is where you can set up your notification preferences. So this is basically what you want to get notified about as far as activity that is occurring in your course. And by notifications, I mean emails that will be sent to your Camden County College email address. Now, when you first click on your notifications, you are only going to see this column here that's going to have your CCC email address. I have added additional contact methods here, and these are optional. You don't have to add additional contact methods, but I've done it kind of as an example. So, and I will show you how to do that in just a minute. That's actually done on a different screen. But the thing about notifications is that it's a nice way to really keep up with what's going on in your class, and you have a lot of flexibility about what you want to be notified about. So for example, this late grading option, if you want, you could choose to be notified whenever a student turns in an assignment after the due date. And so you have 4 different options here. If you have the check mark clicked, then that's going to send you a notification right away. You could get a daily or a weekly summary, or you could turn off this particular item altogether if it's not something that you are concerned about. And if you forget what the symbols mean, there is a little key at the top that you can reference. So you'll notice here that there are different notification settings for each contact method. So if you want to add another contact method, you can turn all of the notifications off for one and turn them all on for another. That's up to you. But the one that I do recommend leaving turned on, and this is turned on by default, so you don't have to actually do anything to turn it on. But under conversations, this added to conversation and conversation message, I really recommend leaving this on, especially for my face-to-face instructors, because what this does is when a student sends you an email to the Canvas inbox, which they will do even if you tell them not to, they will still contact you through the Canvas inbox, a copy of that message will be sent to your Camden County College mail as well. So you'll have a copy of it here in the Canvas inbox, you'll have a copy of it in your CCC mail, and you can actually respond right from your CCC mailbox. And again, a copy of your response is going to go to the student's inbox and also be stored in your Canvas inbox. So, and we'll talk more about the Canvas inbox in a minute, but this is a nice way to make sure that you're not missing something, some important communication from a student if you're not logging into Canvas every day, which a lot of face-to-face instructors may not need to log into Canvas every single day. So if there's any questions about notification preferences, go ahead and type that into the chat. And in the meantime, I am going to move on to this settings link, which is where you can add additional contact methods if you'd like. So over here on the right-hand side, you'll see where it says ways to contact. And of course, you will see your CCC mail already there. You cannot remove that. That's the default. But you could, if you wanted, add an additional contact method by clicking this add email address link here. You also could add a cell phone number if you wanted to receive text notifications. And I get funny looks when I say that because I know that doesn't always sound like an appealing prospect, but some people really like it. And again, you can be very selective about what types of notifications you receive at your different contact methods. This does not mean that your students have access to your cell phone number. This is just another place that you could choose to receive notifications if you would like. All right, so I am going to move on here to my dashboard. So again, the dashboard is going to be the first place that you come to when you click on Canvas, and also the first thing that your students see when they click on their Canvas account. And so the dashboard is where you will see all of your current courses that you are currently teaching, and in addition to the Faculty Hub, the teacher training, and the Sandbox. This will happen automatically. So when you are assigned to a course by your department chair, the system will trigger Canvas to create a course shell for you. So it's not something that our department does manually, it's an automatic process. So sometimes it depends on the department, but occasionally we have departments that are maybe a little bit slower, or they kind of wait till the last minute to assign things to people. So what I like to tell people, if you're sitting there and you're waiting for that course shell to pop up so that you can start working on your course, you can always click this Start a New Course button. And what that will do is basically create a temporary course shell. It doesn't have to be temporary, but it's an unofficial course shell that you can work in. You can build your course in, you can copy content into it from a past semester, make your changes, and then once your official course shell is created and pops up on your dashboard, it's very easy to copy everything over from this shell that you created into the official shell where your students will be enrolled. So just keep that in mind if you're kind of wanting to get started working on your course for the next semester before you're seeing that official shell pop up on your dashboard. When you look at your courses on your dashboard, if you're teaching more than one section of the same course, you're going to notice that they're labeled exactly the same. So unfortunately, the way the course shells are created by the system, it doesn't put the course code or section number on the course tile. You're just going to see the course name twice, which is fine if you're only teaching one section. But if you are teaching, I've got instructors that are teaching 4 and 5 sections of the same course in a semester, and they're just seeing basically what looks to them like 5 identical course tiles. So I do like to show a little workaround for that if that applies to you. And what you can do here is you can give your course a nickname, and that will be whatever you would like the nickname to be, and that will differentiate that course from, or that section from, the others. So you can click on this kebab here. That's a Canvas word for these 3 dots, and it took me a while to get on board with using it, but it's for some reason easier to say than 3 vertical dots over and over again. So I'll be using this term kebab. There are kebabs all throughout Canvas, and it's always going to be a way to get to your settings or to set up your preferences. If you're trying to figure out a way to make changes to something, always look for that kebab. So I can give my course a nickname by clicking on the kebab and typing the nickname in here. So what should I use for my nickname? Well, first I have to figure out what section it is that I'm looking at if I'm teaching multiple sections. So I can click on the course, kind of keeping in mind which course tile I just clicked on, and there's several ways to get this information, but probably the easiest is to click on the People tab. And then you can come over here and look at this section column, and this will let you know what section of the course you're looking in. And if you want to use the section number as the nickname that you're going to give it, you can actually just highlight it and copy it, and then go back to the dashboard, find that course tile again, click on the kebab, and then just paste that in there if that's what you want to use. Now, some instructors like to put Wednesday night or day class or night class, whatever it is that they find the easiest to sort of differentiate between their different sections, and that's completely up to you. You're the only one that's going to see the nickname that you've given that class. Your students actually don't see that. So that's just a quick workaround if you're finding some confusion over which course shell you are looking at on your dashboard. The other thing I like to point out over here is your to-do list. And this is going to automatically populate with any items in Canvas that you have created that you've assigned points to or assigned a due date to. And this will be a combination of items from all of your courses. Your students are going to see this as well. Of course, theirs is going to be a combination of all of their courses, but it's kind of nice because it puts things very prominently on the dashboard and allows students to see what's coming up and kind of make a plan for what they're going to have to do in the next week or two. With your dashboard, just like the courses are going to automatically pop up on your dashboard when you are assigned to them, they're going to automatically disappear from your dashboard when the course is concluded. And it's not immediately at the end of the semester. I believe OIT has set that date for, I think for the end of spring, it's going to be March or May 30th, somewhere around there. So it's a couple weeks after the end of the semester, but there will be a day in early June when you log in and you look and you say, oh, my spring courses are not on my dashboard anymore. And sometimes that causes a panic because instructors think that their course is gone forever. But you can always get back to your courses, even the ones that have concluded, by clicking on this courses button and clicking on all courses. So when you click on courses and then all courses, you can scroll down and find this past enrollments section, and you'll be able to see all of the courses that you have taught in the past. You can't make changes to them once they've concluded because we don't want to go back and make changes to a course that's already done, but you could always copy them or access information that you've had in those past courses. So those are always going to be there for you. All right, I'm going to move down here and click on my calendar. I love the calendar in Canvas. It's a really simple tool to use that has a lot of really good benefits for your students. So the calendar in Canvas is actually a combination of calendars for all of your courses. So if you look over here on the right-hand side, you're going to see that I've got all these different calendars. They are color coordinated, so I can see that the Student Success course is the one in orange. These are fake courses, by the way. This is actually the Canvas Faculty Hub, which is a real course, and I do use the calendar to put different trainings in and upcoming events so that faculty members can easily find them. And this is going to automatically populate, just like your dashboard will, with anything that you assign a due date to. So anything, if you go in there and you create a quiz or an assignment, it's going to pop up here automatically. It's not an extra step that you have to do. However, I especially really like the calendar for my face-to-face instructors. And so even if you are not assigning work that has to be done in Canvas, let's say you've got a test or a quiz coming up that is going to be taken in class, but you still want your students to be aware of it, and you want it to be very much in the forefront so that they can't forget that it's coming up or that they don't have a reason to say that they didn't know about it. It's very easy to add items to the calendar, even if they're not being turned in through Canvas. So all you have to do is click on the date. And I like to change this from an event to an assignment because it keeps it on the dashboard and the course homepage for the students. And then you can just give it a title. So I could say this is going to be quiz number 2, whatever it is. I already have the date in there because I clicked on the date. Under calendar, I just need to select the course that I want to assign this to. And then I just have to click publish. And then when I click submit, I've got my item right there on my calendar. And it's not only going to pop up on my calendar and the students' calendars, it's also going to show up on the dashboard. It's also going to show up on the course homepage. So it's very visible to the students. The other cool thing about this is, let's say that on the 12th something happened, we weren't able to actually do the quiz that day, so I needed to change that due date. I can always drag and drop that item to the new date. It's going to change it in all the places that it's been put, and it's also going to send the students an email notification to let them know that the due date has changed. So you really do get a lot of bang for your buck with the calendar, and it takes maybe 20 seconds to add an item to the calendar. So I do really recommend using it. So now I'm going to click on my inbox here. So I mentioned the inbox a little bit ago, but this is an internal email system So what that means is there's not an email address that you're going to get that's separate. You're not going to get spam, and you can't email your mom from the Canvas inbox. This is only for communications internal to Canvas, so namely communication between you and your students. So it's kind of a nice thing to be able to sort of keep all of your communications with your students in one place away from everything else. So even though you, of course, will use your CCC mail, you also get a bunch of other stuff in your CCC mail that's all mixed in. This is only going to be for those communications with your students. You can filter it out. Right now it's showing me all my courses. But if I want to filter out my courses here, I can only see the items for this course. The one complaint that I have gotten from instructors about the Canvas inbox, it's not a super robust system, so it doesn't have a lot of features to it. Unfortunately, there's not a way to set up folders for individual courses. So you kind of, if you've got a whole bunch of emails, you're going to kind of have to scroll through. And if it's something that you think you might need to come back to later, I always recommend hover over that particular item and then click the star, and you can easily filter just your starred items in your inbox, and that way you can look at the things that you have kind of marked as important and filter out the others. So not always the perfect option since you're not psychic and you maybe don't always know what you're going to have to refer back to, but it is a way, if you know that it's something that you want to be able to get to quickly, starring it is an easy way to go about that. If you want to create a message to send to your students, you can click on this pencil and paper icon at the top. You'll need to click the course number. You'll have a drop-down menu, and you can click the course that you want to send the message to. And then click on the address book, and you'll have the option at the top to email everyone in the course. So this is a nice quick way to email all of your students at once. If you are wanting to just email individual students, you'll click on the Students button, and it will give you a list of all of your students. And you can just select the individual student or students. The rest of it works just like any other email system. You give it a subject, you type your message here. If you need to add an attachment, a document that you want to upload from your computer, you can do that here. In order to be able to email your students from your Canvas inbox, your course has to be published. And we will talk about publishing your course in just a second. But sometimes I have instructors who haven't published their course yet who try to contact their students through the inbox. They type a message, they hit send, and I don't know where it goes. It goes out into cyberspace and disappears forever, unfortunately. But they can't contact you through the inbox. You can't contact them until your course is published. I'm going to go ahead and click on the help menu here. So the college has paid for the highest level of tech support that Canvas offers. And that's very nice because it's available 24/7, 365. So if you are a night owl or you do a lot of work on the weekends when I'm not here and my colleague Rose is not here, you will still be able to get live immediate support from Canvas. So you could do a chat by clicking on the chat link here. Your students have that same option as well, so let them know that this does exist because they may not notice or think to click on this help icon. You could choose to give them a call instead. They are very happy to walk you through whatever question you have, or if there's an issue, they will work with you to resolve it. So that's a really good option. So just don't forget that that is there. So Judy had asked if there's a quick way, immediate way to send notifications to a student if there was a class cancellation or something more immediate. So the answer is sort of, because the students have the same types of notification preferences as you do. So if they have in their notification preferences, if they have it turned on so that they get an alert whenever an announcement comes out, then yes, they'll get an immediate notification that will go to their email or their phone if that's where they have it set up. and they won't have to, wait till they log in to see it. However, they also have the option to turn it off, just like you do. So probably the best way, I would maybe cover all my bases and send out an announcement and an email, and that way hopefully they'll see it one way or the other. But unfortunately, there's no way for you or for us to control what they're seeing when they're, as far as their notifications go, because they could have it turned off, or they could have it where they're getting a daily summary. Now, a lot of students don't even know that there are notification preferences. So a lot of them, it's going to be turned on. But we can't guarantee that, since they do have some control over that. So we're going to get back onto our dashboard now. I am going to click on, we're going to be working in a different course today, but I'm going to start with this course here because I want to show you quickly. I just like to make sure that I emphasize the importance of publishing your course. It happens at the beginning of every semester, and I'm sure it will, because we're all human and we all forget things. But I've had instructors that have spent a ton of time making a great course, putting up a bunch of awesome information for their students, and then they forget to publish it. So the students can't see the course, they can't access anything in it. And as I mentioned a minute ago, you can't email your students through the Canvas inbox. So to publish a course, you have to click on the course. It will take you automatically, when you click on a course, it takes you to the course homepage. And then you need to look over here on the right-hand side. You'll see where it says course status, and you'll need to click this publish button. So this check mark is here, whether or not it's published, which I think can be a little misleading. You'll know that it's published when the publish button turns green. So that is your way of knowing for sure if the course is published. I'm going to go ahead and unpublish this again. Once you have students that have done work, or if you've had interactions with students in your course, this is actually going to disappear. So you will not have the option to unpublish it once you've got students that have done any kind of work or interaction with you in the course. The course that we're going to be working in today is a fake course with fake students, but those fake students have done fake work in here that I can show you. And so when you first click on your course, as I just mentioned, you will be taken to the home page. And by default, the course homepage is going to be the modules. So modules are basically your way of organizing your course content. And the way that you do that, the way that you choose to set up your course, just depends on, first of all, what your method of instruction is, whether you're doing an online, a hybrid, or a face-to-face course, and then also your needs for your course, what makes the most sense to you. So what I have here is an example of what a lot of my face-to-face instructors use as their format for setting up their course. If you didn't have a need to have a different module for every week, you might decide that you wanted to have one module and put all your handouts in it, have another module and put all your PowerPoints in it, and maybe another module for all your videos. So modules are basically your way of organizing your course content. Now this is a more like a topical or a categorical organization scheme here, because I'm grouping things together, and that's perfectly fine for a face-to-face course. Now, if you were teaching an online course or a hybrid course, you would need to do it a little bit differently. And this is just an example of what that might look like. So here I have an example of an online class. Online classes are set up so that there is a different module for each week. So for every week of the course, their students are going to be able to find all of the course materials for that week, all of their assignments, discussions, quizzes, anything that they've got to do or access is all put into the module for that week. Now again, this is optional for face-to-face instructors. I do have some face-to-face instructors that, because of the format of their course, they found it necessary or helpful to go ahead and create a module for each week, and that is absolutely an option. But I like to show both examples of both kind of two main ways of setting up a course, because you kind of need to decide how you want your information to be displayed before you can really start with putting your materials into your course. So we're going to stick with this one today because this is a little bit more simple and it's a little bit more designed for a face-to-face instructor. But just keep in mind that you want your students to access all of your materials and all of their assignments through the modules. And you'll notice over here that all of my other tabs, so all the other areas in Canvas, have these eyeballs with a line through it. That means that the students cannot see that particular item. So for example, all of my files, items that I've uploaded, like my syllabus or PowerPoints, those kinds of things, my students have to access those through the appropriate module where I've put the files. And the reason for that is simple. I don't want my students to have to click on the Files tab to see all of their files they need to access, and then click on their Assignments tab to see all their assignments. If I've got discussions, they have to click here. It's very stressful and confusing for students when they have to click in multiple places to find all of the things that they need for each week or for the semester. And then they're always worried that maybe they didn't click on everything, maybe they're missing something. So I want to make sure that they are accessing everything through the modules. The other reason for that is if I click on my Files tab here, I don't have a ton of files in here since this is a fake course, but once a course has been taught a couple of times, this Files tab tends to get very lengthy. And a lot of times you'll end up with maybe old copies of old syllabus or past stuff that you still have in your files, but you're not assigning anymore or you're not providing to students anymore. I don't want my students to have to click on the Files tab, scroll through all this junk that's not in any particular order, it's just alphabetical, to hunt through and find that particular Word document or that particular PowerPoint that they need for that week. What I want to do is create a module that makes sense, put it in a certain order or certain organizational scheme, and then add that item to it. So I don't want to belabor the point, but it really is best practice to have all of your items as much as possible put into modules for easy access by your students. So once I have decided how I'm going to organize my course, whether it's week by week, chapter by chapter, or just like this where I've got certain items grouped together, then I can go ahead and start adding modules. So I can click on this Add Module button here, and I'm going to give my module a name. So let's say that I want to do an orientation module. And down here, I wouldn't most likely lock an orientation module because that's going to be something I want open from the beginning of the semester. But with any of your modules, you have the option to lock them until a certain date or time that you want them to open. And this can be really nice if you don't want your students working too far ahead. You don't want to have everything for the entire semester open for them to start digging through when maybe they're not ready yet. And again, it depends. Some people have everything open from the beginning and others choose not to. And it's really up to your professional discretion as far as what works best for you and for your course. But I'm going to, just for example's sake, pick a date here that I'm going to say it will be unlocked. And I'm going to click Add Module. New modules always go all the way down to the bottom. I can very easily reorder or organize my modules by just dragging and dropping where I want them to go. And you'll notice here that these modules have green check marks next to them. So these have green check marks. This one here has a circle with a line through it. What that means is that these modules are published. This module is not. So in addition to publishing your entire course, you also have to make sure that all of the items that you want your students to see within the course are also published. So I want to make sure that my students can see whatever is in this module, I can just click on that icon, and now that module is published. Since I have locked the module, even though it's published, it's still not going to be accessible to my students until March 11th. They will see the name of the module, so they can kind of see an outline of what's coming up, but they can't get into the module until that date and time comes around. So my recommendation is that if you've got modules in there that you don't want open yet, if you can, it usually works best to go ahead and publish them and give them an unlock date. That way you don't have to try to remember to keep going in there and publishing things for your students. Quickly, I do want to point out this is something that has popped up with different instructors in the last couple of weeks. So as I just said, not only do your individual items have to be published, your course has to be published, and the modules have to be published. So it's a lot of publishing going on. Fortunately, like I said, it's just a click. But I've had a couple of instructors with a situation like this. So they're looking at their PowerPoints and they're saying, my students can't see, they're saying they can't see the PowerPoints, but I don't know why, because they're all published. Well, even if these PowerPoints are published, if I didn't publish the module that they're in, they still can't see them. So it can be a little bit of a pain that you have to sort of keep checking to make sure that everything's published. But one quick way to do that is from the home page. You can come over here and in this home page menu, you can always click on this student view. And what this will do is it will allow me to see what my students are seeing. So at this point, right, they can see this is called orientation, but they can't get into it. There's nothing in it anyway, but it's letting them know it's locked and it's not going to open until March 11th. But I can make sure that they can see all of the rest of these modules and all the items in them. So it's kind of a quick way to just make sure that your students have access to everything that you want them to have access to. Just remember to click the Leave Student View button when you're ready to get back out of there, because you don't have any editing capabilities in Student View. So now that I have created a module, I need to go ahead and put some things in it. So since this is my orientation module, I'm going to click the plus sign here. With this plus sign, I can add any type of item to this module that I would like to. So I could add an assignment, I could put a file in here, a page, discussion, and so on. So any type of item I want to add. I'm going to actually add a file here. We'll talk a little more about files in a second, but any files that I've already uploaded, I can find right here in my list of course files. Or if it's something that I need to upload from my computer that isn't in my course yet, I can do that here as well by clicking this New File button. And then I just come down here and click Choose File. And now I can find whatever I need to find from my computer that I want to upload. So I'll put a syllabus in here, and I'm going to click Add Item, and now here is my syllabus. So I would keep doing that until I have all of my items added into my course into my module that I want for them to have for that orientation session. If at any point you needed to edit a module, so you need to change the date or the name of it, again, you're always going to look for that kebab that goes with it, and you'll just click Edit. So I could change the name. I could say, this is an orientation module. I don't want to lock it. Click Update, and then that's gone. If you want to remove an item from the module, you can always click the kebab next to that particular item and then just say Remove. That does not delete the item from the course. It just takes it out of that module. So we looked at the Files tab a second ago. Just a couple of other things that I want to point out here. Files are any types of items that you have created outside of Canvas that you are uploading to your course. So common types of files are PowerPoints, Word documents, GIFs, Excel, spreadsheets, PDFs, any types of those kind of items. So because files are created externally from Canvas, they cannot be edited within Canvas. So if I'm clicking on, for example, this document here, it's going to pop up a preview for me. There's always a preview window here, and I can look over it, but I cannot edit it within Canvas because it's a Word document. It has to be edited within Word. So the way that I would have to do that is click download, download the item. If I click download, it's going to open up down here. I can open it in Word, make my changes, and then re-upload it again. So if you're trying to edit a document, just keep in mind that it has to be done with whatever software program you created the item with in the first place. So within files, if you needed to change the name of a file or delete it, again, you're going to hover over the item, look for that kebab, and you've got your list of options here. You also can create folders if you want to be able to organize your files for yourself. But again, best practice is really to have that files tab hidden from students so that they have to access everything into the modules. As I showed you a second ago, you can upload individual files into your modules directly. They're still going to live in the Files tab though. So even though you do it from the modules, it's still going to actually live in the Files tab, and it's basically just kind of linked to the module. If you're wanting to upload a whole bunch of stuff at once, so let's say you've got like 20 PowerPoints for the semester, the faster way to do it, instead of uploading them one by one into the modules, would probably be to just come to the files and then go to your computer, and you can actually click as many items as you want. You can hold in control so that you can just select individual items and then just drag and drop them into your course, and it will upload them all at once. And it is nice and quick. And then you can put them in the modules where they go. All right, I am going to click on the Pages tab. Pages in Canvas are similar to files in that they're a source of information for students. So not necessarily an assignment or anything associated with something that the student has to submit, but it's a source of information for them. But the difference is that pages are created within Canvas, so they can be edited within Canvas. So for example here, and of course when I click on pages, if you've already got pages, it's going to give you a list of the pages that you have, but I can click this Add Page button if I want to create a new page. What pops up here is what they call the Rich Content Editor, and this Rich Content Editor is not just in Pages. You'll see it also in assignments, discussions, quizzes. It pops up all over the place in Canvas. So I could use this just as a way to type a couple of paragraphs in if I wanted. Of course, I need to give it a title first. And then there are other tools that I can use to provide resources and information for my students. So let's say this is going to be my to-do list for week 1. It's nice if the students do have a kind of an overview for the week if you are doing a weekly format where they can see what tasks they're going to need to do for the week. I could do a bulleted list if I want to. I could do a numbered list. You've got all those options. Let's say that I want my students to watch a video. If I want to provide a video to my students from YouTube or somewhere like that, you do have an embedded YouTube app here, but honestly, I feel like when you use it, it has its separate search here. And when I've used it, I have not gotten the same results sometimes as what I've gotten when I just go to YouTube externally and find what I want. So that's the way I usually will do it. So what I do is you can click on this Insert Edit Media button. And now I am going to go to YouTube. I already pulled this up. And I'm going to click the Share button here. And instead of just taking this URL for the YouTube video, I'm actually going to click the Embed button. And I'm going to copy, the embed URL is a lot bigger, and I'm going to copy that, and then I'm going to go back to my page. And again, I clicked this Insert or Edit Media button here. Instead of this General tab, I'm going to click Embed. And then I can just paste that embed code right there, click OK, and then here is my video. And the nice thing about embedding a video is that the students can watch the video within Canvas instead of them being redirected outside of Canvas to an external link. So it sort of keeps their attention right within Canvas rather than sort of distracting them with whatever else might pop up after this video is over. If I need to delete a video, I can just put my cursor down to the lower right and click backspace and it will delete. I also can use this as a way to put links in for my students. So let's say that I want them to check out a website article about the Stamp Act. So I'm going to say read Stamp Act. So I'm going to basically put friendly text in here that is going to describe the website or perhaps the name of the website. And then I'm going to go to my website here. So this URL isn't too bad, but it still is kind of long, and sometimes URLs are lines long, and so you can go ahead and just copy that URL from up at the top, go back to your page, and instead of coming here and just pasting this whole long URL in here, I can highlight the text that I want to turn into a link, click this link of chain icon, paste the link, and click insert. And now this is going to, it looks a lot better, and there's a practical reason as well. If you have a visually impaired student who is using a screen reader, any links like this, the screen reader is going to sit there and read every single character out loud to the student, which can be very, I'm sure, boring and irritating, but also it makes it harder for them to navigate through a page. Whereas if it just says the Stamp Act, it's nice and descriptive, and the screen reader knows that it is a link. So in addition to a YouTube app, there's also a Vimeo app. Vimeo is another website that has, or database that has a lot of educational videos in it. If you like using Khan Academy, this V here will take you to more external tools, and you can click on the Khan Academy button, and it will give you a list of all of the topics, and you can click through it and find whatever it is that you want your students to see. And you can actually embed those videos right from here as well. And then finally, this button here you can use to record yourself. If you want to make kind of what they call like a talking head video for your students, it's a nice way to introduce yourself. Some instructors like to use this as a way to introduce the week, the topic for the week, put a quick kind of introductory video. So that option is there, and again, it'll just embed it right in the page. The other thing that's cool about pages is that you can link them to any other place in the course. So let's say that my second item here is for my to-do list is to participate in the Reasons for War discussion. I can, again, just highlight the text that I want to turn into a link. And then over on the right-hand side, this is called my content selector. And I can find all my pages. I could link to any page I have here. I could link to any assignment that I have. I could link to any item. So I'm going to link to this discussion that I have and click this discussion. Now when my students are going over their to-do list, they can click right here and it'll take them right to the discussion that they have to participate in. I would still add that discussion to the module for the week, but the more ways we can guide them to where they need to go, the better. I could also insert any files that I need to right into a page. So I could again come over here, click Files, and just click on the name of the file that I want to put here. And this is going to, if they click on this, they'll have the option to download it, or they can just look at a preview of it within Canvas. So you have a lot of different options. Pages are very versatile. When I'm done, if I'm still in a draft state and I just need to save it so I can continue working on it later, I can just click Save, and that way it's not available to students yet. But if I want it to be available to them, I will go ahead and click Save and Publish. And now, again, I want to go back to my modules. I want to come in here, click my plus sign, select Page from my drop-down menu, and select my to-do list here. That way my students can easily find it and access it in my modules. I am going to move on to assignments. In assignments, the assignments tab has two distinct purposes that are both very important. The first is, of course, this is where you would create an assignment, something that you want your students to do and turn in. The other is the assignments tab is really where you are going to set up your gradebook. If you are an instructor who sets up the grades in weighted groups, and by that I mean you've got 40% of the weight for the semester is tests, 20% is participation, 20% is homework, whatever it might be, and so on. That is actually set up not in the gradebook, but in the assignments tab. So the way that you would do that is in the assignments tab, you're going to see there's always this default assignment group called assignments. So even if you don't set up assignment groups, there always has to be at least one. So this is going to be the one that's already in there. We can delete this or we can remove it, and I can show you how to do that. We can also edit it if necessary. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and add in some other groups. So you could have your syllabus right in front of you and just go through and add whatever groups you need. So I'll click this Add Group button, and I'm going to put in my first group, and it's going to be different for everybody, and click Save. And then I'm going to keep going. So I've got participation, I've got assignments, exams, whatever else you need to do. And these are only popping up down here for me because I've already typed them in. It's not like you have to choose from these particular options. So now that I've got all of my groups in here, I need to let Canvas know that these are going to be weighted groups. So if I click on my kebab here and go to assignment groups weight, I need to check this box that says weight final grade based on assignment groups, and it's going to pull up all the groups that I just set up. And now I can go in and give them whatever weight I want. And you can see down here, it adds them all up for you. And I click Save, and now I've got all of my groups. So if I do use weighted groups, I've already done the bulk of the work setting up my gradebook. Now, if you are a straight points person, so meaning rather than having weighted groups, you're just you have a certain number of points possible, students earn a certain number of points, and you divide. You don't have to set up any additional groups. You could just use that assignments group that's already in there because it really doesn't matter. If I wanted to get rid of a group, change the name of a group, change the percent, whatever I need to do, again, I'm going to look for that kebab there, click on the three dots, click Edit, and this is where I could change the name, change the percent. So I've got my groups here now. So what that means is anything that I create now in Canvas that has points associated with it, Canvas is going to ask me what group I want to put it in. So if I look at my gradebook here, you're going to see that right now all I have in here are my groups that I've created. I don't have any actual assignments in here yet. These are just my groups. I don't have any way straight from the gradebook to add additional columns to put grades in for assignments. That, again, is all done in the Assignments tab, or if you did create a quiz that students are taking in Canvas or a discussion that the students are doing in Canvas, those actions will create a column in the gradebook as well. Let's say that you wanted to have your students are going to take a test and you want them to do it in class, but you still need a gradebook column because you want to be able to put those grades into the gradebook. That can be done very easily by clicking the plus sign within that particular assignment group. And you can actually just leave this as an assignment since the students aren't turning this in through Canvas. It really doesn't matter what type you designate it as, but you can give it a name. So let's say this is going to be test 1. I don't need to worry about a due date, but I will want to put points in. So I need to make sure I have the correct amount of points, and then I'm going to click Save and Publish, and it's going to put that item right there in exams. I can keep going with whatever other items I need to, and you could set this up at the beginning of the semester, or you could add items as necessary. So now when I click on my gradebook, in addition to having all of my weighted groups, I also have my assignments here. And what you'll notice is I can't edit these columns. This assignment column is only to show me what average the students have in this particular weighted group. So if I look at my exams, I can put a grade in here. I put 100 in for James Casey, and now it's showing me that he's got 100% average currently in this particular weighted group. If he gets a 90 on this one, it's going to adjust his average to take into consideration he got 100 on one and a 90 on another. So this column is going to be an automatic adjustment, constantly calculating based on whatever it is that you put into your assignment columns. So the assignment columns can be edited. The weighted group columns cannot. These are going to be automatic calculations. So I'm going to click back on my assignments here. So let's say that rather than just creating a column in the gradebook quickly by adding something directly to one of these groups, let's say that I want my students to turn something in through Canvas. Or maybe I don't want them to turn it in through Canvas, but I want to be able to provide them some additional information about the assignment online. So instead of clicking the Add Group button here, this time I'm going to click the Add Assignment button. And I'm going to give my assignment a name. Down here, as I said before, you've still got your rich content editor, so you could put a video in there. You could put a video of yourself. You could put a link to a website that you want them to look at or respond to. Down here, I want to put my points in, and then I want to select the assignment group that I want to put it in, whichever assignment group that I need it to be in. So I'm just going to keep it in assignments. I want to choose how I want to display my grade. So I could do it as percentage or points. That's up to me. And then these other options are not as used as often, but you have other options as well. If I want the students to get a grade on this, but I don't want it to count as part of the final grade, I can check this box. Otherwise, it will calculate this item as part of the student's final grade. So under submission type, now, let's say that this is still something I'm going to collect in class. I don't want them to turn it in online, but I wanted to maybe give them directions up here or give them some other resources that they need. I can still say that it's going to be, the submission type is going to be on paper, or I could say no submission if it was a participation type thing. But this is still going to create that gradebook column without giving the students a place to turn anything in Canvas. But for my example, I'm going to say I'm turning this in online, or my students are turning this in online. And I have a few options here. So the text entry and the file uploads are basically the two most used by far. Text entry is basically giving my students a box just like this. They get the rich content editor as well. So if you wanted to have them turn in a video, or sometimes it's nice to give an option depending on what the assignment is. So let's say I wanted to allow my students to choose to record themselves talking if they would like. I can assign them the text entry and then they can just use this tool here. They also could, again, put in a link, whatever I need them to do, but they can also just type their response into the text entry box. Now, I will caution you that if you are having your students turn in a research paper or an essay or something that's longer that you want to be able to help them edit and revise using annotating tools, do not have them do a text entry. You're going to need to have them do a file upload and use a PDF or a Word document. That way you will have your annotating tools that you can use. The way the grading system is, or the grading tools are in Canvas, if it's a text entry, for whatever reason you don't have any of those annotating tools that you have with a file upload. If you wanted to, you could restrict the upload file types, which is nice if you want to make sure that you're not getting some kind of weird file that you can't open. So what you can do is put the extensions, file extensions in here. So if I only want to allow Word documents or PDFs, I can put a list of my file extensions here. So these are the only 3 file extensions that Canvas is going to accept for this assignment. So that would be Word documents or PDFs. Just be careful that you're including all possible file restrictions here, because I have had some instructors leave off docx, and then if somebody is trying to upload an older version of a Word document, it's not letting them. So just make sure that you're as inclusive as you can be with these file types. Down here, we have a built-in plagiarism review called UniCheck. And if you choose to run your student's submission through UniCheck, you're going to have a couple of other options here. I recommend just leaving these turned on. So this basically is going to add anything that your students submit to the institutional library. So not only will UniCheck compare what your students submitted with what it's finding online, it's also going to compare it to the library for Camden County College, not our physical library, but the library of documents that other students have turned in. So what can happen is it can detect if a student has just copied something from another student, or even if a student has turned in a paper in your class that they already turned in another class, because if it's gone through UniCheck, it's going to compare it to everything that's in that institutional library. I recommend excluding quotes and references. So if a student is citing a source, they're quoting something, it's going to recognize that that's what that is, and it's not going to count that against the student's originality score. And you will get a originality score that will let you know, and you kind of have to use some judgment. So you can decide, do you think that 10% of, if it's only a 90% originality score, is that good enough? It also will show you what it's found as far as what items look like they could have been plagiarized. And so you'll see the student's submission highlighted any areas that it found that are very similar to another source online. And then it'll actually pull up the source that is online, and you'll be able to compare. So you can kind of make a judgment call what you think, if it's something that was just maybe they didn't paraphrase really well, or if it was actually they're copying and pasting something and trying to pass it off as their own. You can also choose to show the report to students immediately if you would like. A lot of instructors like to do this, because what this does is it gives the student a chance to realize that they did plagiarize. Sometimes it is unintentional. Sometimes it is intentional, but it will give them a chance to realize that they're not getting away with it. And they can actually edit the submission and resubmit it. Now you can still see that all that happened, but for some instructors, it's worth it for the student to be able to correct that rather than the instructor having to address it and take whatever further steps need to be taken. But if you don't want them to see it immediately, you've got these other options. So you could choose to show that report at a later date or never. I cover group assignments and peer reviews in a lot of detail in videos in the Canvas Faculty Hub, so I'm not going to go over these here, but just know that you do have those options. And then down here is where you can assign your assignment to everyone. You also could, let's say you needed to give a student their own individual due date because they were sick or they need an extension, you can click this add button, and then you'll be able to select an individual student or students from that list and give them their own due date. Students are allowed to turn in late work in Canvas. They can keep turning in assignments up to the until date. So it's up to you if you want to give students a couple of days grace period. You will have the option to automatically deduct points for any submissions that you've marked late. You will know if a student has turned in something late. It will be in red and it will let you know that it was turned in late, but sometimes instructors like to allow a little grace period. If you don't want to, that's perfectly fine. Just make sure that that until date is exactly the same as the due date, and then it will not be available to the students to turn anything in. The available from date is the first day that the assignment is available to the students to even access and turn in. Again, when you're finished, you're going to want to click Save and Publish if you're ready for the students to have access to it, or just save if you want to keep editing it at a later time. So if there's any questions about assignments, go ahead and type those into the chat. And we're going to take a little closer look at the gradebook in the meantime. So I'm going to click on grades. And just so everyone knows, and you probably have already heard this, but the plan is for Canvas to be the official way of turning in grades. Hopefully by this summer they may be ready to roll this out, but I am just letting everyone know that it is a good idea to go ahead and become very familiar with the Canvas gradebook, because WebAdvisor is going away, and this will be your way of keeping track of and submitting grades in the near future. It may not be until fall, but it should be happening pretty soon. So when you're going through your grades here, let's say I've got my journal entries in front of me and I'm wanting to grade them, I can click on the box next to the student's name. So this would be for James Casey, and I could either just put the score in here, or if I wanted to, I can click on this little box with an arrow, and I get a slide out menu over here that gives me some more options. So I can put the grade right here. Let's say he's going to get a 9, and I can mark it a certain status if I need to. So if I want to, I can mark the item late, and if I've already set up a late policy, which I'll show you how to do, it's going to ask me how many days late it was, and then it's going to automatically deduct however many points I need to for however late it is. So right there, I have it set up to deduct 10% for each day that it's late. So that's what it's showing me right there. That way, instead of just taking off that point myself, it lets the student know that they would have gotten a 9, but they got an 8 because it was late. And it also color codes it. So if I'm trying to look later and say, I wonder why he didn't do well on that, I can easily see if it's blue, I know it's because it was late. You can also mark items as missing, excused, and you can leave a comment in the gradebook for the students to be able to see maybe a little more information, feedback on how they did. So you can set your late policies by clicking on this gear in the upper right-hand corner, along with your other gradebook policies. If you would like, you can check this box to automatically apply a grade for missing submissions. Most frequently, it seems like it would probably be a 0 if they haven't turned anything in. You can always override that later, so if they did turn it in, you can change that. That's not a problem. But if you mark it late, you could choose for it to just be put in as a 0. Down here is where I set up my late deduction policy. So for every day that the item's late, it's getting 10% taken off of their assignment. I can also put a lowest possible. If I don't want them to lose everything, I could put a floor there. The other thing that I always like to point out from this policies screen is up at the top, you'll see this advanced tab. And what happens is you will see a total in your gradebook. So right now, this student has a 90.71%, and I can't edit that. So this is based on the grades that I've put in. It's calculating it. But let's say the student had an 89 and I wanted to give him a 90 because he's worked really hard, I can't change that right here. What I can do, though, by clicking on my gear and going to advanced, is I can insert a final grade override column. So I need to check that box. It's unchecked by default, so you will have to come in here and check the box and click update. And now it's going to put an override column right next to the total column. So if I needed to change the student's grade for whatever reason, I can put their override score in. And when the student looks at his score in his gradebook view, and students only, of course, see their own grades, but when he looks at this, he's just going to see a 91 in the total. He's not going to see that I had an override for his grade. I can still see it because his total is going to stay there and my override's going to stay there. You don't want to put an override score in, though, for the students whose grades you want to keep. So you only have to fill that in for the students whose grades you need to override. So if there's any questions about the gradebook, I've made multiple videos about the gradebook and how to set up columns and how to navigate the settings and all of those things in the Canvas Faculty Hub. So if you need a little bit of reinforcement for that, you can always go check those videos out in the Faculty Hub. But the last thing I'm going to click on here is my settings. If you scroll down a little, you will see a start date, you will most likely not see an end date in here because the default end date, as I said, for this semester that OIT has set is May 30th. And so basically that means that the students won't have access to the course after that date, and you will have to go into your concluded courses after that date. I don't recommend, I've had some instructors last semester that put the end date in here and they put the end date as the last day of class. The problem with that is it causes a whole bunch of students to call me and say, I'm trying to get in and see what my grades were, my last couple assignments, and I can't see it now. And then I have to call the instructor and ask them to please give the students a few days at least to go in and see their work. So if you want to put an end date, that's perfectly fine, but I would at least give the students a few days after the end of the semester so that they can still get in and see what their grades were and their final stuff. You can always check this box, and so if you want to put an end date, you can put an end date for the last day of the semester if you'd like. If this box is checked, the students can still get in to see the course up until the course concludes, but the course will be in a read-only state, which means that the students can't make any changes. And then the last thing that I want to show you in the settings here, the grading scheme. If you want your students to see a letter grade associated with their assignments and their total, you have to select the course grading scheme. Otherwise, all they will see is their percent that they have. And you do that by checking this box, and then you need to click this Set Grading Scheme link. So the default grading scheme that is set by Canvas is not what we use here at Camden County College, and unfortunately there is no way to override the default grade scheme. So what you'll need to do is click Select Another Scheme, and then you'll find the other grading schemes that I've set up for the college. Most departments use the CCC standard grading scheme, which is the 90 to 100 is an A, 80 to 90 is a B, and so on. But different departments do have their own. So if you are in one of those other departments, you can select your grading scheme that you want and then click Use this grading standard. If you don't want your students to see a letter grade, you only want them to see a score, then just don't even worry about selecting a grading scheme. Then just make sure that you click Update Course Details when you're finished, or it will not save. The very last thing before we go, I've encouraged you from the beginning to use the modules as the way that your students will access all of your course materials. So to make sure that that happens, you of course will need to add your items to the modules, but also you can hide all of the other tabs that you don't want your students to see. And that's done by going to Settings and then clicking on Navigation. And anything that you don't want your students to have access to, you can drag and drop down below this line that says drag items here to hide them from students. In addition to having a bunch of things that you don't want your students to see, you also will have things that aren't even going to apply to you. So these are different textbook publisher sites. Nobody has all the textbook publishers for one class. So there's definitely going to be some things that you can just hide here. And then when you're done, just click Save. And that way your students are only going to see the things that you want them to see. All right, so that is what I have for you today. If there's any questions at all, I will hang out here for a few minutes and I'm happy to answer any questions. If not, you are free to go and have a wonderful afternoon. And if there's anything at all that you need that you've got questions about or you need help with, feel free to give me a call or shoot me an email, and I'll be very happy to help you out with anything.